This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. So we still don't have a set Masechta to do on Friday. Today we're going to speak about a very interesting inyan that is relevant to Bar Mitzvah, of course. And let's start by learning some of the halachos about Chiyuvei Aliyos. We know that what could be a very touchy and sensitive subject is who's a chiyuv. Usually on any given Shabbos, there are about 300 people in the shul who are chiyuvim. Why are you a chiyuv? Because his niece graduated, so he's a chiyuv. Why is this guy a chiyuv? Because he hasn't been to shul in 5 years, so he's a chiyuv. So a lot of people are chiyuvim, but we have to learn what exactly are the chiyuvim. So the Bir Halacha and Siman Kuf Lamed Vav, Siman Klu. These are for people who have no clue, right? So that's how you remember what siman it's in. V'yata nesader hachiyuvim shehasgan mechuyev letzavos lekroisam. Now we're going to learn the obligations for the gabbai who's mechuyev to command these people to read, because technically speaking, if you get an aliyah, you need to read from the Torah. This is based on the enactments and the practices that our Chachamim put in place, like it's explained in the Lavush and the Magen Avram in Siman Reish Pei Beis. Number 1, here are some of the chiyuvim. Chasan b'yom chupasai, the day that you get married. Okay, you're a chiyuv. So if somebody wants to get an aliyah, notwithstanding takana de Rabbeinu Gershon, if you want to get an aliyah, so you get married that day. If you cancel later, we'll still let you keep the aliyah, okay? Chasan.
Shabbos before it's on the day.
What does it say? It's okay. So if it says bayom, then it means bayom, right? Chasan b'Shabbos koydem hachasana shemazamra moisai. The chasan on the Shabbos before the chasana that we sing to him. That's called the afraf. The Shabbos before the chasana, you are mezamer the chasan. The chasan is a chiyuv. Nar shenas bar mitzvah ba'oisa Shabbos. A kid who becomes a bar mitzvah that week is a chiyuv. The father's not a chiyuv. The grandfather's not a chiyuv. The great grandfather's not a chiyuv. The uncle's not a chiyuv. And the shver is also not a chiyuv. Okay? So a guy comes into shul, he tells the guy, I have 7 chiyuvim. Who? I have my father-in-law. Good for you. If the father-in-law wants to give money to the shul, then avada, he becomes a chiyuv that the shul is going to have to give him an aliyah. But there's no chiyuv to give an aliyah to anybody in the family. Bal isha yerledes, the husband of a woman who gave birth, he's a chiyuv. B'Shabbos shoyleches beis hakneses. If she comes to shul, if she's not in shul, he's not a chiyuv. Got it? That there is a halacha that before a woman leaves the house, after, it's a minhag, before a woman leaves the house, after she has a baby, she first hears a davar shebekdusha. So the Shabbos that a woman comes to shul for the first time after her baby, the husband's a chiyuv. Chasan b'Shabbos she'achar chasana. The chasan Shabbat Chatan is a Shabbos before.
No, not in the Sfardim.
No. What? Oh. So the Shabbos, Shava Brachas, after the Chasan is a Chiyuv. Yartzeit, B'Shabbos Shu Yoim Shameis B'Aviv V'Yimai. If the Shabbos of the Yartzeit,
Shabbos, does that mean the week now or the day?
It always means the same thing. Shabbos means the Shabbos of the day that the father and mother passed away. Avi Yeled Zachar B'Shabbos Lefnei Hamila. The father of a baby boy on the Shabbos before his bris milah. V'yesh mekayma shenagin shegam hamoyel v'hasandek hem chiyuvim. Some say the moyel and the sandek are also chiyuvim. V'yesh she'ein noyagim came rak mechadin osam b'hagva, so they just give them hagva. Okay. Now, so these are all chiyuvim. Now the question is order of operations. Who comes first? So you have one guy is a yartzeit, one guy is a bar mitzvah, one guy, his wife is in shul, one guy is a moyel. Who comes first? Chasan b'yoim chupasai. Hainu b'choil k'sheyasach b'yam zeu koydem b'chol chayuvim. A chasan on the day of his wedding is number 1. He trumps everyone. Afilu l'nash naz bar mitzvah b'yoim zeh, even a kid who's a bar mitzvah. So it's a Monday. You have 2 people. One guy is getting married and one guy is becoming a bar mitzvah. The chasan takes precedence. V'kol shekain shekoidem liyartzeit. Certainly, the chassan takes precedence over a yartzeit. He's number one. Number two.
You have to meet after you got married.
No, on that day.
The day of the what?
Day of.
How about the weekend Shiur brothers? No.
How about a lot of things? We're talking about this case. The day that you get married, you trump everybody, even a bar mitzvah, even a yartzeit. Number two, nar shenasa bar mitzvah ba'oisa Shabbos. A kid who became a bar mitzvah that week, im yesh lo iranis, provided that he lives in the city. If he's a stranger, but if he lives in the city, he comes first. This is when we're training him. Okay. And when the kid gets called up, the father makes a bracha patrani. So now, number one is what? Chasan b'yam chupasai. Number two is a bar mitzvah boy on the Shabbos of his bar mitzvah. Number three, melvad chasan shemezamrin loishu shavalai. Except the afruf is equal to a bar mitzvah boy. So now what are you going to do? You have an afruf, you have a bar mitzvah boy. What are you going to do? The answer is that's why there's 7 aliyahs on Shabbos. Now the question is, what if you have a bunch of afrufs and a bunch of bar mitzvahs? What do? V'yatilu garo, you make a lottery. Heads or tails? What? Yeah, you get a Shabbos coin. They're brought to you by the makers of Shabbos lamp and Shabbos brush. They have the Shabbos coin for the bar mitzvah afruf dilemma. But if the bar mitzvah doesn't live in the city, even though you have to call him up, he will not push off any other chiyuv. He will not push off any other chiyuv. Okay. So far we learned, number one chiyuv is chasan b'yam chupasai. Number two, which are equal, is afruf and bar mitzvah.
What about Shlishi, Ravi, Chamishi, Shishi, the order?
Shlishi is the third aliyah, Ravi is the fourth aliyah, Chamishi is the fifth aliyah, Shishi is the sixth aliyah.
You know what I mean? Which takes precedence?
It depends. If you're in the yeshivas, the Shlishi is better, and by the Hasidim, Shishi is better.
So there's no set order.
No, there's no order. Here is the question that we need to deal with, and that is, similar to what you're asking, what aliyah should you give a bar mitzvah boy? I'm not asking what they do. That has no bearing on what you should do. What aliyah should you give the bar mitzvah boy? The minhag is you give him mafter.
Mafter is not a real aliyah for that day.
Midina de Gemara, katan oila l'shir krum, beprat b'roiv mekaymes b'zman hazeh karin oisai l'mafter.
Before you should, after he gets a regular aliyah.
However, in the Sefer Leket HaKemach, he says it is absolutely incorrect to give a bar mitzvah boy mafter. The reason being is, why do you give him an aliyah? You want to show, yesterday he was a katan, and today he's a gadol. The problem is that in no way does the giving him mafter indicate that he's a gadol, because you could give a katan mafter. He says, "Al kapana minhag harim kon shavar mitzvah oila mafter einoi shaper." It's wrong. The eino nikar bezeh shu gadol ki gam katan oila mafter chutzim hu korei ka minhag gam poi. Unless if he's going to read the mafter. So if he's going to read the mafter, then it's okay that the katan gets mafter. Here's the question. Very interesting question. You have a yard site, and you have a bar mitzvah boy. Who should get the mafter? Now typically, an avel or a yard site is supposed to get mafter. The reason is, there's a special inyan that an avel, the Ramah writes, that an avel, if somebody's in Yud Beis Chodesh, they should try to get mafter and lay in the haftarah as often as possible. There's a special inyan for a yard site to get mafter. And the minhag is, you give a kid mafter for his bar mitzvah. So what do you do if you have a yard site who's supposed to get mafter, and a kid who's supposed to get mafter? Either way, they're both going to get aliyahs, but there's only one mafter. Who should read the mafter? So if you look at number 4, in the Nimukei Orach Chaim. Anybody know who wrote Nimukei Orach Chaim? This is the Minchas Elazar, the Munkatcher on Orach Chaim. He writes a very interesting shaila. Nistapakti lamaisa shenish'alti kisheira b'Shabbos echa b'beis hamedrash. It happened one week. Shahaya Baal HaYartzeit Boy B'Yom. He had a Yartzeit Boy B'Yom. Ubal Mitzvah, and a Bar Mitzvah, Shenasa Bar Mitzvah Gam Kein Boy B'Yom. Ushneim Roitzim B'Ham After. They both want them after. Yan Ki Mavur B'Lavosham. It's Mavur in the Lavosh. V'Gam B'Shar Ephraim, U'V'Shar Echroinim. V'Gam Adoini Avi Zikni Moir V'Rabi Hanal B'Shem Shloima Iksav Yad Sider Sham Kedima So'ilam V'Chiyuvim Sham Then said the Nar Shenasa Bar Mitzvah Ba'Oisa Yom Hu Kaidem Harbe L'Yartzeit. Bottom line is, let's say you only have one aliyah. Let's say on a Monday, you have a bar mitzvah boy and you have a Yartzeit. Who's going to get the aliyah? Bar mitzvah boy. So the bar mitzvah boy takes precedence. But now it's Shabbos, so either way they're both going to get aliyahs. But now the question is, who should get them after? Amnam yesham dahasamari b'pshizas mi kaidem kugan sheish rak aliyah achas umi sheyidcha mibnei mi al ken Yartzeit shirak toivas hameis. Yartzeit, you're not getting an aliyah for you, you're getting it for the mace. He's pushed away. Menachai bar mitzvah shabahayom l'chal chiyuv mitzvahs haTorah mavarich nami v'yoyde barabim laShem ala Torah shabal l'chal chiyuv lo kibla hayom mehar Sinai ubal l'chal bris hakol v'idem b'nei Yisrael shegublu. In other words, the bar mitzvah boy, by getting aliyah, he's thanking Hashem that he enters the fold and he's entering as a member of the covenant. Lishmar meyat v'yad olam al ken achiyuv l'kroiser l'Torah b'Shabbos kodesh. In other words, why is the bar mitzvah boy a chiyuv on Shabbos? You already got an aliyah during the week. The answer is on Shabbos. There are more people in the shul, and it's a way of publicly showing gratitude to Hashem that you entered the fold. Why? But when he already got an aliyah, because it could be, what if his bar mitzvah was Friday and he didn't get an aliyah? So as a loy plug, there in Masaki, and a bar mitzvah boy always gets an aliyah. Loy pug kilav b'chol yoymo kriyas atar b'maisachol al ken yikru b'Shabbos shenasa kabar mitzvah chiyuva. And what about the shuls that they call up the bar mitzvah boy from after the week before? They're a bunch of fools, he says. V'zehu minhag buros. This is a foolish custom. Imashinagu tzas yikru lam after b'Shabbos gonna be kaidem like a chasan. The problem is the chasan is allowed to get an aliyah. Bar mitzvah boy before his bar mitzvah is not allowed to get an aliyah. But on Shabbos Kodesh, where the machlokes is who should get them after, and who should get the shlishi, so he says, V'hinei mavur b'Rama. The Rama says in Yardea Siman Shinai and Vav, in the name of the Kolboy, Shenoyagim Sheha Avel during 12 months and during a Yartzeit, Maftir B'Navi. You hear this? It's a minhag that people don't know about. Everyone knows about, you have to daven Marav Matzah Shabbos. What about getting mafter? The Avel is supposed to get mafter. Umispalal Arvis Matzah Shabbos. Now, what's the inyan of the Avel getting mafter? Why should he get mafter? V'hinei hamayla shal aliyas mafter shal ha'avel oibal ha'yartzeit yoyser mishar aliyas. What's the connection between mafter and other aliyas? Ki l'chayra kasha daharei ha'mafter hu pachasha b'hem. Why would you give him mafter? It's the least of all the aliyas. V'katan yuchalak roi. That's why the Kachmasaynos or Chazal say that why does the mafter daven Musaf? It's an appeasement to him that he got a shvach aliyah, consolation prize. Thank you. Shema mosifin loy shamafter paris al shema gamken lefnei atzibra elavade bakom mishum. You know why the inyan is that an avel reads mafter? Because he gets to say 7 brachas. Bracha before the aliyah, bracha after aliyah. Asher bacha asher bacha v'yim tavratz v'devreihem tzur golomim tzak b'chodas akel anemahan. He makes altogether 7 brachas. Yoiser hainu brachas haftarah zehu toiva leniftar habracha she'amar b'tzibur. Like the Ramah says in the name of the Medrash in the story of Rabbi Akiva, that when a niftar son says kadashu baruch hu b'tzibur, it's a benefit to the niftar. Therefore, the maftir is appropriate because he gets the milas of the brachas.
Is he supposed to get every week when he's
every week, every single week?
No, that's not the minhag.
Why not? Yes, it is a minhag. The minhag is to follow the Ramah. If you can. Thing is that many avelim will only daven in a shul where they give them after.
What's the minhag in your shul?
Baruch Hashem, we have young people, but what's the minhag? again, it's practically speaking, it's hard to give the same avel every single week. But all things being equal, if you need someone from after, you should choose an avel. Yeah, my father's makbid on it. But in a big shul, you have a shul, 300 people, you can't practically speaking, there's more than one, and you can't take them after every week. But, there are, let's say, hashkama minyanim, that if you're, you could finagle it. So, again, it's all thing. By the way, you know what else Rama says? That an avel should be mezamin. He should lead the zimun.
In most shuls, if you come to a Gabba, you want him after every week, the Torah.
But of course, that's over there, right?
That's what the Rama says. Now he says, so you say, well, if the whole thing is saying the brachos, so why weren't they masakein that the avel davens before the amud? Which is more, in other words, nowadays the avel does daven before the amud. But in Halacha it's not brought down that way, it's brought down the avel says Kaddish. Right? He says that's not a question. Not everybody
doesn't get called on Shabbos.
What?
I thought the Oval doesn't daven for the Amud on Shabbos.
Not on Shabbos, during the week. Right? So he says it because not everybody knows how to daven for the Amud. But most people, they know how to daven the Haftarah because they had a bar mitzvah teacher. He says, that's the minog in Krakow, and it's written in the Takanoi Sham, Bevadei b'askamas chavar ha'ir morin harama b'chvoid v'atzar Sham, that an Avel may not daven during the week. The minog in Krakow is the Avel does not daven for the Amud. Why? Because if you hear the way people daven for the Amud, it's not doesn't bring nachas ruach to the nifter. When matzmiach keren Yeshua, keren, what language? It's Chinese. It's keren. You have to know how to read Hebrew. So if somebody who doesn't know how to read the Ivra gets up and mangles and slaughters and shechs the tefillah, it's not a zechus for the nifter. So you have to know how to daven. Not baruch ata, adoi, not adeh, ado. People, they read it as if they're reading English. Ado. You have to know how to pronounce the words. So if you don't know how to pronounce the words, so you're better off letting somebody else daven for the Amud. Therefore, in Krakow, they did not let an Avel daven for the Amud. Even though...
How about the minute every person as your side to daven the Shabbos before? What's the big difference?
No, you mean the whole Shabbos?
Yeah, the Shabbos.
I don't know. He says, so why only Marav? Marav, people know how to read the words a little bit. You don't, how much Hebrew do you need to be able to read to daven Marav? All you need to know is, Baruch Atah Hashem HaMarav Aravim, Baruch Atah Hashem Oyev Amo Yisrael, Hashem Elekechem Emes, even that people mangle. Hashem Elekechem Emes. There's no such word, Emes. Maybe Tzimis there's the word, but not Emes. It's MS, right? Yiskadel v'yiskadesh. What? Then in Kaddish, what do people say in Kaddish? Le'ela mi kol berchasa. The whole year it's Asar Samei Tshuva. Most people, it's min kol berchasa. You only say what? It's le'ela, right? There's no word le'ela. There's no barachamav, not in any nusach of Kaddish, unless you're making a siyam. He's Messiah Masechtas every 3 minutes, he's making a barachamav. Oiseh hashalom b'mroimav. It's Asar Simei Tshuva the whole year. And even during Asar Simei Tshuva, most say you don't say Oiseh hashalom. Okay, anyway. What? Yeah, in a regular Kaddish, you don't say barachamav. Barachamav? Not say. What? People say Oiseh hashalom.
No, before that.
And he said there, Oiseh. That's not what the shiur is about today. I'm just telling you. Le'ela mikol. It's min kol. Yeah? Sfardim also have to keep halacha, or not just Ashkenazim. Oiseh shalom reimav. What? No. Oiseh shalom reimav hu yaser shalom aleinu. Okay. Anyway, Rabbi Sai. So in Krakow, they didn't let you daven for the Amud. Why? Because most people don't know how to read the words. He says, Shachris and Mincha, only you have a regular shots. Avav emes, lemi sheyachal kvar, kasser amah, shel salv ne'ativa odav yos mikad. Now, lemaisa, if somebody does know how to daven before the amud, it's a much bigger zchus to daven before the amud than kaddish. Kaddish was masakin for people who don't know how to read. People get very into the kaddish. Kaddish is second tier. First tier is davening for the amud. Okay? V'ulai yesham gamatam. So why do they noik to be mafter in the navi? Because since the mafter, you could even put up a katan. Therefore, what are you going to do if you have a yasaim? So if you have a yasaim, you're able to malamed him, and he could be a rugel to read the mafter. Therefore, when he gets older, he'll be able to read the mafter for a yard site. Okay, meaning why were they masakein kaddish for ketanim? Because he can't daven for the amud. So too they were masakein maftir, because sometimes you'll have a katan who can't daven for the amud.
I know, let's say Lakewood, when I visit my sister and brother-in-law, and they don't know, they just have Al Korah, and he says the maftir for everybody.
Everybody, they don't
allow anybody.
Nobody, no bar mitzvah boy. Yeah.
Right.
In a way, that's much better, because very few people know what they're doing. On the other hand, very few people will ever know what they're doing if they never have a chance. So that's the balance.
And if you want to have it, you go to a separate venue.
Right. Yeah. Right. In many places in Lakewood, they don't let bar mitzvah boys lane. So it has its ups and downs.
You say beracha or no?
No, you don't.
Why
No.
do people say it?
No, only Jewish people don't.
He doesn't say it. Why do people say it?
Why? It makes them feel good. I don't know.
But, other people say it. Who beracha is? You say it.
I know. Okay. So basically, what do? You have a yard site, you have a bar mitzvah boy, who gets the mafter? Al kalpanim. Mi. It's very interesting. You know what the reason why the Avel says mafter? The same way an Avel says Kaddish. Because Kaddish is something we could give an Avel so that they could do even if Chas Hashem they're a Katan. Mafter is also something we give an Avel because it's something they could do even if they're a Katan. But, says the Munkatcher, Mi Allah Shamayim V'Yarad, whoever went up to heaven and came down and told us, Ezahi Toiva Lahames, what really gives it tastes good to the mess? In other words, did anyone ever go up to Shamayim and see the geschmack that a mess gets out of laning the haftarah for them? Nobody really knows. It could be it's because of the riboy habrachos. But a katan who turns 13, meaning the Munkatcher is saying like this: what's the reason a yard site gets the maftir? Is it because it's like Kaddish, it's something we could give to an Avel even when they're a Katan? And in that case, there's nothing special about mafter for a yard site. So if you have a yard site and a bar mitzvah boy, you'll give the mafter to the bar mitzvah boy? Or is it that there's something very special about mafter to an Avel, and then the yard site will take the mafter over the bar mitzvah? So bottom line, he says, when it comes to a bar mitzvah boy, who is bar mitzvah on that day, that he could get another aliyah. He's been spending the last year learning his maftir from a bar mitzvah teacher, and you spent $100 an hour, and you spent thousands of dollars, and now comes, his mazel is some guy has yard site on his Shabbos. Hagam shemalam den sanar b'talmud Torah v'chadarim lemer haftarah brachos b'nigun harogel v'nimsa shekvar lomad zel lechinam kiven shemaftir ata achar bala yard site. It's not a reason. Your thousands of dollars is not enough of a reason to push off the yard site. And therefore, bottom line is, bar mitzvah, yard site, maftir, yard site. You hear this? Alkein haresi, shabala, yard site, v'oisayim, koidim l'maftir.
How about it? Go about nefesh to the boy, to the father, the tsar, that doesn't count. You just forget about the money.
What are you going to do? It causes people out of agmas a lot of things.
Because he wants them out to your side.
What about the practicality about mitzvah boy studies for a year and he doesn't know? I mean,
that's what he asked, and the answer is, halacha is halacha. Yeah, and he says, but mibnei darkei shalom, you should make a goyrel, and hopefully the yard site will win. That's what he says. He says, Ulabala yartzeit, ola hagar ola toiva.
How do you make Torah?
What's the problem? You flip a coin.
You know, Torah? You need
Yeah.
someone to say the Torah?
You designate before Shabbos for a girl. Or take a...
There's a mitzvah which is not halacha.
Or get from the super, the NFL. They have like these coins, you know. Heads, the home team. Tails, the away team. So you make special coins. They have them ready in the stores, you know. They're already marketing them. Goyrol coins for bar mitzvah yard site dilemmas.
Two heads. You know, you're ahead of time.
There was a big controversy. Somebody rigged the bar mitzvah yard site. You know, there was a big story in Yeshiva World News about that. Yeah.
And the Borim call it that Bosiso Yosha Vatoy. It's called Sefer Yosha, which is not halachic. Yosha Vatoy, these kids learning like Sefer months for a year.
Oh, so Maisa, this is why I'm giving the share today. The Chazonish said, Nar bar mitzvah comes before mafter. Why? Because you taught him the brachas and the haftarah, and it's a tremendous tsar to push him off. Basically, in the Sefer Oitzer bar mitzvah, it's brought that if you taught the, you know, maybe practically, maybe halachically, the yard site has a din kadima, but what about the ingredient of the tremendous tsar you're causing the kid? And he says, and I saw taka chazoinish paskin that you should give it to the bar mitzvah even against the yard site because of the tsar of the kid. That's what he quotes the Chazonish as saying. I didn't trust him, so I looked it up, and he doesn't say that. Chazonish doesn't say the Chazonish paskin that way. In the Sefer Din van August Mar Chazonish, it says one time there was a mafter in a yard site, and the Chazonish paskind mebnei tsar that you should give it to the bar mitzvah boy. The svara being that the yard site will lay in the haftarah, this haftarah every year for the rest of his life. Bar mitzvah boy, it's only a one-time thing. Now, it doesn't say the Chazonish said always that's the halacha. One time, meaning there was one specific instance where the Chazonish realized that under the circumstances, he weighed the situation and he came out, it's kedai to give it to the bar mitzvah boy.
That circumstance will always have the same issue, that the bar mitzvah boy is only going to lay it once in
No.
every year for the rest of his life.
Yeah, but the circumstance of, what if it's a kid who barely knows the haftarah and didn't really put in the time, and the father is a big Baal Midas, and the father doesn't care, and it's the yard site is, it depends on the circumstance.
What if there are two?
Next case, because we have to finish in 2 minutes, yeah?
Two bar mitzvahs.
Well, next case. Yeah? Next case. So a kid's preparing, he's been preparing his bar mitzvah pasha for 2.5 years. He got the best teacher, he got Pavarati and Helfgat to train his voice. And, right? And he's been practicing, right? And he has it down. And then he realized they made a mistake. His bar mitzvah shoifed him. And they find out the Friday before the bar mitzvah. The father made a mistake. He looked at the calendar and he messed up. Now what? Yeah, you can have the kid laying the parsha. He's not a gadol. Rav Moshe has a tshuva that if there's a miscalculation, is a katan allowed to read the Torah? The Magen Avram, look at number 7. Betou bizman hayosei ben yirgam hasham v'lamdu likroi haseder shavs hakoydem. Could you be makel and allow the kid to read the parsha under the circumstances? So Rav Moshe has a tshuva. He quotes Magen Avram Sin Reish Pei Beis. He brings from the Knesset Hagdolah that a katan can't read the parsha. But the Pri Megadim asks, katan oila laminyan zayin, even in the olden days when he could get one of the aliyos. Says Rav Moshe, an amazing thing. Rav Moshe basically says the lumdus of Kriyas HaTorah is not Shemei. I have a question. When you're about Kaireh, do you have to have in Zin to be moitzi the listeners like by Kriyas HaMegillah? No. So there's no kavana lahaitzi and lotzeis. It's a din you need to learn. Says Rav Moshe. B'shas hadchak. L'chayra, you can't be mekel. L'chayra, the Pri Megadim is not correct. That how could a katan lane for others? He says all the shitos of the achroinim, like the Pri Megadim, that b'shas hadchak a katan could lein are tamua, but midina, if it's going to be a tsar gadol for the bar mitzvah boy and the family, you could have the kid lein his parsha even though he's not a bar mitzvah under the circumstances. Hear this?
But he doesn't get an aliyah because he's too young, right?
Maybe no.
Most of him is his.
No, it could be he could get an aliyah as well because katan is oila laminyan shiva b'shas hadchak.
According to some, right?
Rabbi say one last case. We know that maftir, there's a lot of leniency that a katan could get the maftir, meaning the last aliyah, even if he's a katan.
And he could read it too, right?
Yeah. What about Parsha Zachar?
No.
So the Ramah says, yes. Parsha Zachar, yes. Parsha Zachar, the Ramah says he could get the aliyah. He could get the aliyah. He says in Mishavur, look at number 9. Here, look at the Ramah for a minute. He says, Katan yachal likrois beparshas hamusafim oy bedalet parshios v'chein noyagim. The minhag is Katan could read Parsha Zachar and the dalet parshios. Says the Mishabura, Zachar is daraisa, and the Katan is not mechuyav. So the answer is nowadays there's a Bal Koreh, so he'll be mitzi everyone. However, it says in Mishabura, there are those who are machmer not to call up a Katan for Parsha Zachar or Parshas Para. Look at number 11, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. The story was, you had a kid, and nobody ever told him that you don't give a bar mitzvah boy Parshas Para to lein the maftir. And to lein, right? Zois Chukas Torah. And he prepared it. And they asked Reb Shlomo Zalman, could this kid who, he wasn't even leining his parsha, all he prepared was the maftir. Says Reb Shlomo Zalman, Me'ikar adin we paskin Parshas Para is midrabanan, and therefore under the circumstances you should let the kid lein Parshas Para. So they asked Reb Shlomo Zalman, where's that? But that's not the halacha. We're choy sheish is daraisa. Does this come from the 5th Shulchan Aruch? As they say, the 5th Shulchan Aruch is common sense. Shlomo Zalman says no, this doesn't come from the 5th Shulchan Aruch. It comes from the halacha, because there's a halacha that a katan cannot be moichal you. Katan is not b'nei mechila. And therefore it's actually worse to insult a katan than to insult a gadol. If you have issues and you feel you need to insult someone, you're better insulting a gadol than a katan. So katan is not b'nei mechila. There are many stories of gedolim who at the bar mitzvah of kids came to their bar mitzvah to be able to ask for mechila because they couldn't ask for mechila before. So therefore Rosh Shlomo Zalman says it's very important to be sensitive to the needs of children. And this kid over here, he's not a bar mitzvah boy, he's a child. So you have to be very sensitive. I'm only bringing this in, so basically there are 3 instances in halacha where the feelings of the bar mitzvah boy actually change the halacha. Case number 1 is he'll trump a yahrzeit, even though a yahrzeit really should have kedima for the maftir. Case number 2 is if he prepared the wrong parsha and he's not a bar mitzvah boy, b'shas hadchak, we're going to let him lein. And case number 3, if he accidentally prepared parshas para. But I do recommend that if you're making a bar mitzvah, make sure you get it right, and make sure the kid is a bar mitzvah and he lanes the right parsha. And so actually, I'm giving this shiur here, but I'm not giving it on Shabbos. I'm not giving a shiur about laning the wrong parsha, and my son's going to be sitting there. I don't want to get him nervous or anything. Okay, so this is special for you guys. Okay, shkoyach. And here's the good news.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.